السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. النهاردة إن شاء الله موعدنا مع chapter 1 The Prisoner of Zenda. chapter 1. رادولف راسندل بيقول لنا إن رادولف راسندل اللي هو البطل بتاع القصة بتاعتنا، رادولف راسندل was having breakfast at his brother's house. Rudolf Rassendyll was an English gentleman. An English gentleman رجل ثري إنجليزي. He was 29 years old. His family was rich. His brother Robert was Lord Burlesdon. Lord Burlesdon يعني حاكم بيرلسدون. روز راسندل اللي هي تعتبر زوجة أخو Rudolf Rassendyll. Rose Rassendyll was Rudolf's sister-in-law. She was angry with Rudolf because هنقول بقى الأسباب ونذكر السببين الرئيسيين، والأسباب دي تعرفها وتحطها في دماغك كويس قوي. نمرة واحد، he was 29 years old but he didn't have a job. ده رقم واحد. رقم اتنين، he is so proud of his family. يبقى السببين اللي مخليين روز تبقى angry with رادولف. السبب الأولاني إن he was 29 years old but he has no job. إنما السبب الثاني he is proud of his family. رادولف رادولف بيعتقد إن he didn't have to work because عنده برضه أسبابه، وهو بيقول أنا مش بشتغل ولا حاجة. عنده عدة أسباب. بيقول because his family was rich، عيلته ثرية. he didn't need to work. he had enough money. his brother was a lord. his sister-in-law was a countess. أخوه لورد، مرات أخوه كونتيسة، وعيلته طبعا عندها ما يكفي من المال. رادولف thought he was not lazy because he spoke 5 languages. بيتكلم لغات. السبب الثاني، he worked hard and studied hard when he was at German university. He was good with a gun. He was a good swordsman and he was good at riding horses. كل دي أسباب مخلياه راضي عن نفسه جدا وحاسس إن هو مش كسول ولا حاجة. Rose thought that Rudolf was different from his brother Robert because بتعتقد أن رادولف مختلف عن أخوه روبرت، لأن نمرة واحد، رادولف had red hair but Robert had dark hair. Number two, Rudolf sees pleasures in his position but Robert sees responsibilities. وبيقول Rose told Rudolf that she had a good opportunity for him. Rose was persuasive شديدة الإقناع، وبتقدر تقنع أي حد للأسباب اللي جاية دي. She persuaded Rassendyll to take the job of Sir Jacob. نمرة اتنين، she had a good way of asking people to do things. طريقتها كويسة في طلب الأشياء من الناس. يبقى لما بتيجي تطلب حاجة من حد بتطلبها بطريقة كويسة. رادولف agreed to take the job because يبقى اللي خلاه يوافق على هذه الوظيفة 3 أسباب برضو. He thought that it was interesting. It was after 6 months and he needed the period of 6 months. He didn't want Rose to think that he was lazy. Rudolf planned to visit Ruritania. The Rassendylls were interested in the Elfbergs, the rulers of Ruritania, because their great aunt Emilia Rassendyll visited Ruritania in 1733 and married one of the royal family. The Rassendylls were proud to be the relatives of the Elfbergs. Robert Rassendyll was interested in Ruritania because, number one, he kept paintings of Countess Emilia and her family on his wall. Rudolf was the last one of the Rassendylls to have the same appearance of the Elfbergs. He had red hair and a straight nose. Rudolf decided to visit Ruritania because he wanted to attend the coronation of the new king. يبقى السبب الرئيسي الذي يدفع رادولف إلى الذهاب إلى روريتانيا هو أنه يريد أن يحضر حفل تتويج ملك روريتانيا. رادولف lied to Rose and told her that he was going walking in the Alps يبقى بيقول لها ان هو رايح الى جبال الألب، وطبعا هو لم يكن ذاهبا الى جبال الألب ولا غيره. Rudolph lied to her and he wanted to write a book about the social problems of its people. Rose thought it was a good idea. Robert also thought it was the best way to get into politics. Rudolph didn't want to tell Rose that he was going to Mauritania because he didn't tell people about his travels. He didn't want Rose to think that he was being lazy. مش عايز روز تعتقد أنه كسول. Uncle William invited Rudolph to visit Paris because Paris was the capital of business and politics at that time. Rudolph arrived in Paris and invited two of his friends to dinner. صديقين اللي هو عامهم دول كانوا George Featherly, who worked for the embassy, and Bertrand, who was a famous journalist. They told him about the famous people visiting Paris at that time. Antoinette de Maubin, and she was a rich woman. She was the guest of Duke Michael. She was famous for her wealth and position. Number two, Duke Michael Elfberg. He was the half-brother of the new king of Mauritania. He was his father's favorite son, and he wanted to become king. Rudolph traveled to Mauritania on the same train with Antoinette de Maubin. He booked a ticket to Dresden. He didn't want to tell George that he was going to Mauritania because George would tell Bertram. Bertram would write about that. Bertram would write about that in the papers. On the borders, the guards stared at Rassendel. He looked like their king, of course. السبب اللي كانوا يحلقوا فيه هو إنه شبه الملك بتاعهم طبعا. He bought a newspaper. He knew that the coronation was in 2 days. He had to change his plan. He decided to stay in Zenda for these reasons. Strelso was full of people. He wouldn't find a room at a hotel. He wanted to visit the castle of Zenda. Zenda was a town in Mauritania. It was about 10 kilometers from the borders. It was 80 kilometers from the capital. He booked a room at an inn in Zenda. Rassendel booked an inn. The innkeeper told him that he didn't like the new king. Number one, because he was almost a stranger. He spent most of his life abroad. He was interested in easy life and good food. He did not care about his people, and they didn't know what he looked like. هم لا يعلمون شكله، حتى شكله لا يعرفون ما هو شكله. The innkeeper told him that she liked Duke Michael because he lived with them. This is number one. He promised them to change. He cared about them, so they liked him. Rudolph felt sorry for Michael, but he believed that it was right that the older brother became king. يعني الصحيح والصواب هو أن الأخ الأكبر هو الذي يصبح ملكا، حتى وإن كان أخيه الأصغر هو أو أخوه الأصغر هو الأكفأ والأفضل. Johann, a friend of the innkeeper's daughter, came in. When he saw Rassendel, he took off his hat and stepped back because he thought that Rassendel was king. The next day, Johann came to the inn and invited Rassendel to stay at his brother's house. She was married to a rich merchant and she had a large house. Rassendel accepted his invitation. Rassendel decided to walk in the forest, number one, or to tell the truth, to see the castle of Zenda. Number two, he expected to see the king in the forest. The castle of Zenda, it was an old building, but it was surrounded by a moat. There was a mansion near في سرايا قرب منها. The castle and the mansion were connected with a drawbridge. Rassendel was tired, so he kept under a tree. He slept under a tree in the forest. Sabt and Fred, the guards of the king, found him in the forest. They thought that he looked like their king, although they were alike, they were also different. They had different personalities. Rassendel told them that he was a traveler from England. He was an officer in the Queen's army. The king came from behind a tree. He was surprised to see Rassendel because, of course, looked exactly like each other. وهنا نكون وصلنا إلى نهاية تسجيل النهاردة. إلى اللقاء في تسجيل آخر قريب إن شاء الله.